It was October 10th, 2023, and my name is Amelia Miller. I died for 15 minutes and 39 seconds. What I saw wasn't just a glimpse of heaven during those minutes. Jesus himself showed me 3 important events that will shake the world before 2030. It was a divine meeting. This story needs to be told, not to get respect or fame, but because time is running out and God's people need to be ready. I worked as a nurse for 15 years with kids. I worked with medical facts, science proof, and logical reasons. I never in a million years thought I'd be telling this story. But God does have ways to talk to even the most sensible people, doesn't he? It was just another morning when it began. I chose to start my morning jog earlier than normal because I had a restless night after my daughter's piano recital. At 4:31 a.m., the streets of our Minneapolis neighborhood were mostly empty, with only a few cars going by now and then. It was cool outside, and there was a light fog that made the lighting look like halos in the dark. I'm sure I looked at my watch at 4:40 a.m. Things changed very quickly. Coming around the turn was the last thing I saw. I found out later that the driver had passed out behind the wheel. I thought to myself, this is it. After that, everything changed. It was an instant change. I remember being on that dark street one moment, and then being hit by a light that was so pure and bright, it should have blinded me the next. It wasn't though. It felt like pure love was all around you. It's like walking through a door you didn't know existed, and into a world that is more real than anything we experience here on Earth. The first thing I noticed was that there was no pain or fear at all. They were gone. And I felt such a deep peace that it was like I had never felt peace before in my life. It seemed like all the worries and stresses I had in the world went away when I saw this light. It wasn't just a feeling. The peace was real, like being wrapped in a warm blanket of peace. As my awareness grew, I noticed things that were hard for my human mind to understand. I could see the edges of colors I had never seen before. The air itself seemed to have a reason and be there. Music was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Not just one way. The music wasn't like music from this world. It was more like worship made audible, with chords that spoke of glory and power in ways I had never imagined. I then saw my grandmother Sarah, who had died when I was 12 years old. But she wasn't the old woman I remembered from the hospital where she was dying. She looked beautiful and young, probably in her 30s. But I was sure it was her. Her smile was as warm as the ones I remembered from my childhood, but now it had a beautiful glow to it. She called me Eleanor, and her voice had the same musical lilt I remembered. But it was cleaner in some way. It seemed like every word had more than one level of love and meaning. Do not worry, he's ready for you. I had a lot of questions for her. I told her I missed her and thought about her a lot. I also told her how her faith had affected my own relationship with God. But before I could say anything, she reached out and gently touched my face. In that touch, I felt like she already knew what I was going to say. We felt love and understanding for each other without having to say a word. She said with happy eyes that there would be time for questions later. There's something more important to do now though. Eleanor, he picked you for a reason. It's not just for you what you're about to see and hear. It's for his people and his church. They need to know what's going to happen. Everything changed when she said these words. The light seemed to become stronger and take shape. He was there. It was Jesus Christ. Just so you know, his picture in a church doesn't look like him. He looked like a mix of human and divine, in a way that words can't fully describe. His presence was so strong that I fell to my knees, not out of fear, but in worship and awe. Oh, I don't know how to describe his eyes. You could tell they knew everything, but they were also so kind and compassionate. that I started to cry. They loved me deeply and could see right through to my soul. They knew everything about me and still loved me totally. When he looked at me, I felt both completely open and completely accepted. There was so much love in the room when he was there. You know every mistake, flaw, and secret shame about yourself. But that love knows everything about you and still loves you totally. Being with him was the first time I truly understood what true love is. It was like every other love I'd ever had. The love I felt for my kids, for my friends, as a mom, was all but a pale reflection of this perfect, whole love. He called me my child, and his voice, which was both authoritative and soft, echoed through my body. Each word seemed to exist in more than one space, with meanings that were hard for my earthly mind to fully understand. You are here because time is running out, and my people need to be ready. There will soon be 3 events that will shake religion to its core and test the hearts of everyone. The space around us changed as he spoke. All of a sudden, we found ourselves in what I can only describe as a light stadium. There were no seats or stages there. It was just light and energy. Scenes started to appear in the air in front of us. They were as real and solid as any scene on earth, but somehow they felt more real. Jesus put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Watch carefully. Soon, 3 big things will happen before 2030. The first one is about to start. These are the times of tests that will make many people lose their faith if they are not ready." The scene changed, and I saw huge groups of people gathering in places all over the world. Astonished and amazed people looked up at the sky. Beautiful lights danced and moved in patterns that were hard to understand in the sky above them. These were not normal lights. They pulsed with an intelligence from another world, making complicated geometric shapes that seemed to talk to people's minds. Jesus told them, "What you're seeing is the start of the great falling away. These sky signs will show up at the same time all over the world. It will look like they are beautiful, calm, and wise, but they're not what they seem to be." In the middle of the crowd, I saw beings of light start to appear. They seemed kind and smart, and they talked about peace, togetherness, and a new era of human enlightenment. Their words were powerful, and they were a pleasure to be around. They talked about ancient knowledge, the real potential of people, and a consciousness level leap that was about to happen. Seeing how many Christians were being tricked broke my heart. These beings knew the Bible well and could quote it beautifully, but they changed the meaning of it in subtle ways. They said Jesus was a great teacher, but they didn't believe he was God. They agreed that the Bible was wise, but they didn't believe it was true. They preached love while quietly downplaying the need to turn away from sin. Jesus pointed out certain scenes and told me to pay attention to how they mix truth and lies. They always talk about love and never about sin. They say they want peace, but don't want the cross. They offer knowledge, but deny that I am a God. I saw religious leaders from a range of faiths accepting the words of these beings. There were large conferences where Christian terms were carefully reinterpreted to fit these new ideas. Words like salvation, redemption, and Christ consciousness were changed from what they meant in the Bible to something completely different. The trick worked especially well with young people. I saw that there was a lot of interesting material on social media that made this new spirituality look exciting and forward-thinking. More and more, traditional Christian views were shown to be out of date and limiting. People who believed in divine truth were pushed to the edges of society and called problems that needed to be fixed. Jesus said that the lie will be so powerful that many people who think they have strong faith will be shaken. They won't know they're being lied to, because the road away from the truth will seem so reasonable, kind, and open to everyone. I saw what looked like magic being done by these beings. They quickly cured illnesses, made food appear for people who were hungry, and even seemed to be able to change the physical world. Their technological skills seemed to solve many of the world's biggest problems, like finding clean energy, fixing up the environment, and making better medicines. Jesus spoke with a voice that was both strong and sad. Remember what I told you, in my word, since fake Christs and preachers will appear and do amazing things, they will try to trick everyone, even the chosen. These beings will help people with their problems, but they will do so at the cost of permanent truth. The scene changed to show me how this lie would impact various parts of society. Scientists gave up their doubts when they saw what seemed like clear proof of these beings' higher knowledge. Politicians and world leaders are working together to make the direction of these beings a part of world government. The way schools work is changing so that these new moral truths can be taught. Major news outlets are pushing this new way of thinking while quietly putting traditional faith on the sidelines. People were using technology to make spiritual experiences that were so real, they took people away from real encounters with God. The thing that struck me most was how logical everything seemed. It wasn't clear that these were lies or attacks on religion. They were small distortions that played on people's deepest needs for peace, togetherness, and a sense of purpose. He then showed me something that hurt my heart. I saw Christians who were devoted having doubts as their family and friends accepted these new ideas. Kids were questioning their parents' faith. Couples were growing apart, and people in the church weren't sure how to react to these changes. Jesus looked at me with loving eyes and said, "My child, that's why I'm showing you these things. My people need to get ready. They need to know that they have to stick to what they know to be true when these signs show up." Then he gave me clear instructions on how Christians should get ready for this time. Tell them to really believe what I say now, before the storm comes. Many people will make strong arguments and show signs that seem miraculous, but my word is still the measure of truth. Before the lie starts, they have to keep it hidden in their hearts. Inform them to improve their prayer time and their friendship with me. A lot of people will say, "They talk for me in the future," but my sheep know my voice. They need to learn how to see it clearly now. Tell them to get together with other Christians in a real way. When these problems come up, they will need to help and hold each other accountable. The enemy will try to separate them, but they need to stick together. Tell them not to be afraid most of all. Things have to happen this way, but I'm still in charge. If you stay true to me, I will give you the wisdom to see through the lies. The way he said these words made me feel like they were burning into my heart. I was sure I would remember them forever. Christ then showed me something that gave me hope. There were pockets of Christians around the world who stuck with their faith, even though others were lying. There weren't many of them, but they stood out like lights in the dark. He said, "These are my true followers, who have not given in to the spirit of this age. They pick truth over comfort and loyalty, over being liked by many. Many people who were tricked will find their way back to me through them." It became less clear, and I felt Jesus' hand on my shoulder again. His words were, "This is only the first of 3 events you must warn about. But for now, you must go back. Don't forget what you've seen or heard. Tell my people about it. Some people will question and make fun of it, but those who listen will understand and get ready." It made me want to stay longer and ask more questions, but I could feel myself pulling away. Jesus' voice, which was full of love and earnestness, was the last thing I remembered. Tell them I love them. Tell them to keep what they have. Tell them that I will never leave or forsake them, even if they are tricked. As the image of the big lie faded, I could feel Jesus' presence even more. I could feel his love washing over me as his hand stayed on my shoulder. It got me ready for what I was about to see next. He then spoke with what I can only describe as holy excitement. I will show you the second great event, the Great Awakening. For where darkness grows, my light shines even brighter. The arena of light around us changed once more. This time, I saw a wave of pure golden light that went across the ground and took my breath away. But this light, unlike the false lights in the first vision, came from people's hearts. Jesus told them to pay close attention, because this is how he would act during the trick. I will raise a flag against the enemy when they come in like a flood. I didn't expect to see the first scene, but it was in a high-tech company office in what looked like Silicon Valley. I saw a young software worker sitting at his desk with several screens showing complicated code. He stopped typing all of a sudden. There were tears running down his face. Jesus said that this man has been working for years on making AI systems that will replace human spiritual direction. But right now, I show him something about myself that he can't deny with his mind. I saw the young man fall to his knees in his office. His co-workers were shocked when he started to openly praise Jesus. He didn't care about what other people thought or his professional image. Then the scene changed to a teaching hall at a college. A professor who is known for being very aggressively atheist was in the middle of giving a speech, criticizing religious belief. During a sentence, she stopped talking. Her hands began to shake. He said, "Watch what happens when my spirit breaks through years of intellectual resistance." The professor put down her notes and grabbed the stage. To her shocked kids, she said, "I was wrong. Just now I met Jesus Christ. And everything I've ever said about faith being false is now true. The one who was fooled was me." I saw scene after scene, and each one showed me a different part of this great waking. Hundreds of Muslims saw pictures of Jesus at the same time in a mosque in the Middle East, a prison where even the most dangerous criminals were falling to their knees in real repentance. Executives in the entertainment business cancelling projects that made fun of faith on the spot. There were government buildings where people were praying freely and asking God for help. There were hospitals where doctors and nurses saw healings. That seemed too good to be true. He quickly showed me, though, that this waking would not be free. He told me to watch how the world reacts to this overflow of my spirit. I saw Christians going through terrible things, and it wasn't just from governments or church leaders. It was even from their own families. Children were being kicked out of their families because they were religious. People were splitting up with their partners. People were being fired. The students were being kicked out. Jesus said that the line between light and evil will be very clear at this point in time. There will be no more religion that is only half there, or Christianity that is just for fun. Everyone has to pick a side. What amazed me the most was how this awakening went beyond age, culture, social class, and level of schooling. I saw powerful encounters with God happen to both wealthy business leaders and homeless people, as people from different countries worship together in spiritual unity. Language barriers seemed to fall away. Jesus said that this is real unity, not the fake unity that the liars offered. This is how my spirit is united. It comes from telling the truth and not giving in. He showed me how this awakening would be different from other revivals in the past. It wasn't based on certain places or charismatic leaders. It was happening all over the world at the same time. Spiritual growth took place in small groups that met in people's homes. The break rooms at work were turned into places to pray. People started to pray on the spot in school cafeterias. But what really struck me was how much people were sorry. It wasn't emotional hysteria or religious joy on the surface. People really felt guilty about their sins and had a deep understanding of how holy God is. Jesus said to pay attention to how this waking starts in a secret place. Before there are public signs, there is inner brokenness and turning away from sin. I saw as people started to get gifts from beyond this world. Some people were given the power to see into the spiritual world, which showed the lies that were spreading in churches. Others were given healing gifts. However, these healings led people straight to Christ. Unlike the fakers' showy acts, a lot of people got what Jesus called the gift of divine perspective, which is the power to see things from heaven's point of view. Other people were given magical knowledge to help them find their way through the growing chaos. Many people got the gift of discernment, which means they could tell right away the difference between the truth and smart fakes. Jesus told them that these gifts are not for his own fame, but to build up my body. They are tools that will be used in the harvest. After that, he showed me something that made me feel both happy and sad. I saw little kids and teens become strong, people for Christ. They moved with great spiritual power and weren't afraid of being pushed back. But I also saw them being persecuted very badly, mostly in schools and on social media. Jesus said that those young people who stay true during this time will be given extra kindness. They will face problems that aren't like anyone else's, but they will also have a lot of power. The scene changed to show me meetings of a secret church, in places where persecution was very bad, but instead of faces filled with fear and loss, I saw faces filled with an impossible joy. These Christians had learned something valuable. Being with Jesus was more rewarding than any comfort or safety on earth. Jesus said, "Look at how the suffering cleans up my church. What the enemy means to hurt, I use to make myself look better." It was interesting to see how this awareness changed different parts of society. In the tech world, programmers and developers started making tools that made real Christian community easier. For some reason, social media algorithms started to favor posts that claimed to be religious. Tech companies, started by new believers, put ethics ahead of making money. In entertainment, singers and artists were inspired by supernatural forces to make works that were filled with God's presence. Movies and TV shows that praised God started getting more viewers than ones that were against Christianity. Famous people who were known for making inappropriate content all of a sudden started making work that led to Christ. In school, kids started prayer groups that met in secret and quickly spread. Teachers were given the courage to share their faith, even though there were limits. Educational tools that showed how God designed and made the world started to become accepted by most people. In business, Christian owners were smarter than gods during times of economic turmoil. There were more Bible studies at work, which changed the mindset of the companies. As God's people walked in integrity, dishonest business methods were shown to be wrong. Christ made it clear though. A lot of people thought this awakening would look a certain way. It wasn't about making Christian heroes or building bigger churches. Instead, it was marked by genuine brokenness and humility before God, supernatural unity that went beyond denominational lines, deep repentance, and changes in lifestyle, witnessing with unprecedented boldness, deep compassion for the lost, and powerful displays of God's power that couldn't be explained away. Jesus said that this awakening would be both a great crop and a great separation. Many people who claim my name but don't know me will be found out, but a huge number of people who have turned me down will change their minds. He showed me how this would make families feel. Children who have gone astray come back home with strong stories. Split families are supernaturally brought back together. As whole families turned to God, curses that had been passed down for generations were broken. As parents, You can help your kids navigate these new times by getting wise. But as Jesus went on, there was a sense of urgency in his words. We are waking up at a time when darkness is getting worse. Those who answer must do so quickly. People who wait will find it harder and harder to choose the truth. I saw that this awakening was stronger in some places and groups than in others. It wasn't money, schooling, or religious background that made the difference. It was a desire to be humble and know God. Jesus said, "My spirit will move with more power where there is real hunger. Being proud and sure of myself stopped my spirit from moving." After that, he showed me something very important about this awakening. It wasn't just about getting new people to believe. People who had been Christians for a long time but had become lukewarm or comfortable were also warned. He said with great worry that many of his children had only known me in their minds. During this time, they will meet me in ways that will completely change them. Know how in your head will turn into hard experience. Before this part of the vision went away, Jesus told me exactly what to do to help other people have this awakening. When they feel my power move through them, tell them not to be proud. Tell them to stay low and humble, to share their resources without hesitation, to use their supernatural knowledge and spiritual gifts, and to stay happy no matter what. After that, Jesus showed me something very important about this time. Look at how this shaking sorts the good stuff from the bad stuff. People whose lives are based on my word will not only make it through, they will do very well. I saw 3 different kinds of reactions to the shaking. 1. People who had turned away from God became even more set in their ways. 2. People whose religion was only on the surface left for good. 3. People who knew God for real got stronger and braver. Jesus said that this shaking is for more than one reason. It shows what isn't true. It makes what is true pure. It wakes up the sleepy. It makes the faithful stronger. It makes people who are looking for the truth hungry for it. Then he gave me clear instructions on how to get his people ready. Tell them to trust my word now, before the storm comes. People who know my voice will not be fooled. Tell them to make their connections with other Christians stronger. A time is coming when they will really need each other. I want them to learn that they can rely on me for everything, not just spiritual things, but also everyday things. They shouldn't be afraid of these things. Instead, they should get their hearts ready by getting closer to me. Then Jesus showed me how this shaking would work out for his good in the end. It would open up preaching in ways that have never been seen before. It would clean up and bring his true church together. It would show that his kingdom really exists. People would be ready for his comeback. Jesus said, "This shaking is very strong, but it comes from my love." People will turn to what is true if I shake what is false. As this last vision started to fade, Jesus looked at me with eyes that were both serious and loving. He told them to remember that the 3 events, the great deception, the great waking, and the great shaking, are not meant to scare them, but to get them ready. People who know me will have the strength to stand. After that, he said one last thing for his people. Tell them I love them deeply and forever. Tell them not to be afraid of what's going to happen and to get close to me right now. Let them know that my kingdom will stay put even if everything else around them shakes. I felt like I was being pulled back, but Jesus' last words would never leave my mind. Time is running out. Tell people what you've seen. People who can hear will understand. And get ready. I knew my life would never be the same after coming back to my body. The doctors said that I was lucky to be alive, but I knew it was much more than that. It was meant to be, and the word was both a warning and a sign of hope for God's people. I want to stress one last time that these events are not meant to scare us, but to prepare us. God isn't telling His people these things to scare them. He's doing it to set them up for success. The important thing is not getting physically ready, but getting close to Jesus spiritually. Remember that the big lie will test our